Hey guys, I'm Dr. Megan Jimenez. I'm an orthopedic surgeon and Jiu Jitsu brown belt. I'm sitting here with my good friend and partner, Dr. Chris Haraszti. People usually just call him Doc Chris, and that's way easier than his last name. He is an orthopedic surgeon that specializes in hip, shoulder, and knee. He works for Emory University, and he attended medical school at Emory as well. He did his residency at Tulane and is an Atlanta top doc. For his jiu-jitsu accolades, he's a third-degree black belt under Roberto Travin. He's a 3-time IBJJF Master World Champion and 3-time Pan IBJJF World Champion. And in 1988, he was a Georgia State Wrestling Champion. So he's got, and I really trimmed that down, but he is just a great guy, and I'm really excited to have him here because he's an orthopedic surgeon and amazing jiu-jitsu practitioner. So thanks for being on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So the first thing I wanted to ask you, Doc Chris, was what got you into jiu-jitsu and what got you into orthopedics?
Okay, so as far as orthopedics goes, I come from a family of physicians. So my dad and grandparents were all physicians. So that was kind of the path for me. And then I took a little bit of a circuitous route. I went to med school. I majored in international studies, not really wanting to do medicine at that time. And I ended up graduating, and with that degree, I actually just played in a band for 3 years.
What instrument?
Guitar.
Nice.
So yeah, interestingly enough, but the passion that I eventually had for jiu-jitsu, I had for guitar first. And so I played in a band called Eden that played all around Atlanta, all during college.
Do you still play?
So not really. You have to choose one or the other. And unfortunately, seems like the jiu-jitsu kind of beats your hands up.
I was wondering how you would play.
So it's hard to play guitar now.
Yeah.
Now, by the same token, I'm not going to make any excuses, because if you Google Keith Richards' hands, they look worse than mine.
Oh, and he plays.
He's still touring the world. So I think it's just put it down, and I play every now and then. So as far as orthopedics, I think that I pretty much always wanted to go into medicine. I just don't think I was sort of mentally ready to go through med school and everything. So after being out of college a couple of years, I went back to med school. And when I went to med school, I knew I wanted to do surgery. So it was just what type of surgery. I was thinking plastics, orthopedics, neurosurgery. Those were probably my top three. I rotated with a neurosurgeon after my first year of med school. And I saw that all the patients went to the ICU. And I thought, this is not really what I want to do. And then plastics, I think I'm just not so artistic. Not that that's not really necessary, but I kind of was drawn to orthopedics. Played sports all my life. Like I said, I was a wrestling state champ, so wrestling was my big sport in high school. And just thought orthopedics would be good. I rotated with some orthopedics in med school and really liked it, and so decided upon that. I'm super happy. I mean, I love orthopedics.
And you were well into your job when you started jiu-jitsu, right?
Right. So the interesting thing, wrestling was my big sport. Actually, my favorite sport was soccer, and I loved playing soccer. I played soccer since I was like 7 years old. I loved playing it, but I didn't have the best aptitude for it. So I played for years, and people who hadn't been playing as long just naturally better. They had attributes. They were real faster and just sort of better coordination with it.
Were you just trying to take everybody out?
Yeah. So I loved playing soccer, but wrestling was something I had more of an aptitude for. Just pretty much since I started, I was always, it was the opposite of soccer, where people who had been wrestling for maybe 7 or 8 years. When I started, I was like in 9th grade in college, and I was already beating them in maybe a year or so. So it's just the same thing, just, I had aptitude for it. Wrestled all through high school, and then wrestled some for like intramural in college. And the interesting thing about wrestling is that it's not like softball or baseball or soccer, where you have like all these leagues you can do as an adult. I mean, I tell my kids, pick up tennis or golf, because it's easy to play for the rest of your life. You can always play that. But there's not like, much wrestling around. So I didn't even know about jiu-jitsu. So I did my residency. And after I finished my residency in 2007, I started practice here in Atlanta. And I've always liked UFC, MMA. I've always been a big fan. I knew about jiu-jitsu and saw that there was a jiu-jitsu gym near me. So walked in. And I was probably weighing 260, 270. I was kind of overweight. But still, I mean, very big and strong and used to wrestling. And so I went in there, and there was this guy there who was maybe 140 pounds, 150 pounds, who was the instructor. I walked in like at an odd hour, I guess. And so there wasn't a class, and he was just there. And we were talking. I was like, hey, can we, you want to roll? I don't know how it came. It wasn't an aggressive thing like I'm going in, you want to roll. It's more like, what is this? Like, and he volunteered to show me. We rolled, and I mean, I immediately threw him down and jumped on top of him and got triangled.
You got the takedown though.
Yeah, so I could take him down,
Yeah.
and as soon as we got on the ground, he probably submitted me 3 times,
Yeah.
and I'm sure I couldn't have rolled more than 2 or 3 minutes without completely dying. So it was probably in 3 minutes he submitted me 3 times. I was like, this is amazing. So
It's good you went back, because some people have that experience and they're like, nope, there's no way.
no, I was the opposite.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this? What's this crazy thing that he's able to do? So I got into it real heavy, and I got my blue belt in 6 months, just because I was a wrestler. I got into it mainly because of UFC. I mean, I remember I watched the very first UFC. I remember me and a bunch of college friends were getting together, and it was just, we were at somebody's house. He's like, hey, there's this thing on. It's like this, like where all these different styles are fighting. And,
Like the
back
beginning.
then, in the beginning, I mean, people who are older, people who are younger don't really realize what it was like. Martial arts before UFC was Bruce Lee. It was karate, it was Chuck Norris. I mean, we kind of just assumed that these guys were the pinnacle, like just karate was the pinnacle of martial arts. There's no clue on how well it actually worked. You just watched movies and people trained and that sort of thing, but there wasn't really any proof of it. It wasn't until UFC. I mean, UFC just opened everybody's eyes as to what was effective and what wasn't. So yeah, I watched the first one and I was hooked. And again, I watched it at the time, and watching it at the time, there were 8 competitors, and you got the big sumo wrestler. You got some guys who were like karate experts. You got Ken Shamrock, who looks muscle bound and is this shoot fighter. And then you got Royce Gracie, who's like 170 pounds. And at the time, it was like, when you're looking who's going to win, Royce nobody would have thought it.
No.
It really was such a shock to see him win.
Well, and how they came in too, right? Like Shamrock's coming in with like a Speedo
Yeah.
and shoes. Yeah. And then you got Royce coming in with a gi.
To actually watch it at that time, it really was quite a paradigm shift. Just that one tournament, to see how, and the whole thing with the Gracies, Rickson was obviously the champ of the family, and they purposely took Royce because they're like, well, yeah, Rickson comes in, he looks like a beast, he's, but they took the guy who looked smaller and had him do it, and of course he beat everybody.
Yeah.
So
cool. And then so you got your blue belt, and then I know this has always been super impressive to me. You earned your black belt in 5 years.
Yeah,
and
actually about 4.5.
Yeah. So I've been training for 10 years, and I've switched around schools a lot through my training, and you did it in 4.5, right? Yeah. So how did you do that? I mean, you were family, kids at the time, right? Yeah. Young kids, a dog. Probably, were you building a house at the time?
Yeah, I mean, we bought a house. So I started in 2007. Then in early 2012, I received my black belt, and literally 2 months after I received my black belt, I won Master 3 Pan. So, I deserved the black belt. And of course I did it under Roberto Travin, who I'm sure I'm one of his quickest. Now, he was a 4-year black belt. So yeah, Roberto Travin. But he's the pinnacle of instructors. And so, I definitely feel like I earned it. It was a surprise, but I feel like I earned it. So how did I do it? So I think the one thing was the base. So I've always wrestled, and so I came in as a wrestler. And everybody who does jiu-jitsu knows what it's like to go with somebody who's a good wrestler. They don't know jiu-jitsu, but they're a handful. I mean, I think that the thing that happens with most wrestlers is they come in and immediately they're able to roll, like they can beat a blue belt, they can beat purple belts if they start on top, and they can roll somewhat competitively with even brown and black belts. And so what happens is you come in as a wrestler and all of a sudden you're beating all the white belts who've never done it before. No matter, you can go on bottom, top, whatever, you just know how to grapple. Then when it comes to blue belts, if you start on top, you easily beat them. If you start on bottom, it's more of an even roll. And then purple belts, if you start on top, you can actually beat some. And so you get this sort of ego thing where I think very early on, you kind of think, okay, well, I'm this good at jiu-jitsu because I can roll with a brown belt and hold my own if I'm on top, And in a competition, you can usually be on top because, you have the takedowns. So,
and people like to pull.
Yeah. I mean, pet peeve of mine is people who always want to start on top but don't have takedowns. Because in training, fine, you always start on top, but if you don't know takedowns, you're never going to get there. So I think that's not a good thing to do. But anyway, as far as wrestlers go, if a wrestler gets to about a blue belt and commits to start learning jiu-jitsu and playing on bottom, their progression is going to be a lot better. I've seen so many cases where you have guys who are really good wrestlers who do very well up to about purple belt, but they can't really compete with the brown and black because you're not always going to be on top, and sometimes you're going to get swept. And even a great wrestler, if they don't know a lot of jiu-jitsu or not that good, are not going to be able to stay on top against a black belt in gi at least. So I think the different things I did, one, I was a wrestler, I had a good base, so I got my blue belt really quick. The other thing is very early on, probably 6 months in, when I started, I could roll with guys after about 6 months. I could roll with purple belts. I mean, the gym I went to with Roberto Travin, he always separates like the higher belts and the lower belts. First time I ever went there after I'd been training about 6 months, he put me with the higher belts. I never rolled with the, so I was already at that level where I could stay on top and do pretty well, but I would still get beat. I mean, I'd get beat all the time. And even with that, I pretty much made a decision just to sit for every roll because I knew that my top game sort of came naturally and the bottom game is what I needed to work on. So
you focused on the parts you were having trouble with.
That's the thing. And so that's one of the big keys to progressing in jiu-jitsu is focus on your weaknesses. Now, when you're a white belt, you say, what should I focus on? It's like, okay, everything. Yeah. I mean, right now, just roll, just train a lot. But, once you've been training a year or two, you need to really start focusing on your weaknesses. And then the other thing is consistency. I mean, honestly, from the 4.5 years I got my black belt, I don't think I missed a week. I mean, and it's not just, I would train anywhere from 3 to 6 times a week, okay? But I never missed a week. Injuries, whatever. I didn't get injured bad enough where I had to miss, but I just wouldn't miss. If I went on vacation, I always went to a gym.
Yep.
I mean, I would bring my gi with me everywhere I went, consistently for 4.5 years. And then the other huge thing is YouTube. By the time I was a purple belt, I'm sure I'd watched just about every competition, high-level competition footage on YouTube. And you just watch it, see what works. You learn how the right way to move is and all that sort of thing. And then the other two big things I think I did is cross training and competition. And so very early on, I pretty much went to every gym I could. I'm sort of in a position where I was the doctor, so I treat a lot of jiu-jitsu athletes, so I'm friends with everybody. But I was luckily able to go to other gyms as well. I went to every open mat I could, and so every time you cross train, you get exposed to something different. I think competition is huge. I mean, one competition I think is equal to like 20 training sessions.
Yeah, maybe more.
Yeah, maybe more.
Especially if you lose. Yeah. Right, losing in a competition.
For sure. Yeah, that's where your weaknesses are exposed. You say, what do I need to work on? You'll find out. Compete. Yep. You'll find out what you need to work on.
And you have the whole tape. You watch that tape and you're like, oh my God, little things. The whole match.
Yeah.
You could find things. Even when you win, you'll find little things.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So I competed a lot. And I always competed, pretty much right at or above my level competition. My first tournament after I'd been training 6 months since I was a wrestler, when it came to no-gi, I was competing advanced division, not always winning, but I was competing in it. And then I always competed adult division, even though I was masters, all the way up until I started black belt. When I was black belt, I was competed masters. But I competed 3-4 times a year, went out to all the tournaments. Back then we didn't have regional Atlanta Open and all of that sort of thing. It was pretty much Pans and Worlds. And that's the other thing. As far as promotions, it's hard for your instructor to hold you back if you just won like, brown belt Worlds.
Yeah.
So, I won brown belt master. When I got my brown belt, Travin was like, you're not getting, because it was quick. And he was like, I'm not going to give you your black belt for a while. I mean, he just mentioned that. And then I went and won like Pans, brown belt and everything. And so he went in, it's hard to hold it back. And then I think the last thing, another big thing is the instructors. And when I say instructors, so Travin was my main instructor, and he's, like I said, he's world class, highly respected in the jiu-jitsu world, and an amazing instructor. So I had a very high level instructor. And then on top of that, of course, watching every competition footage, because back then pretty much the only thing you could watch was competition footage, because it used to be that before about 2010, 2011, most people were of the idea that it was secret.
Yeah, keep it to your gym.
So all of the gyms, Alliance and Gracie Baja and Nova Unao, they all wouldn't really share techniques. Like, it was kind of, you didn't want to cross train too much. You didn't share techniques. Everybody had their own, secret techniques. And so the only way to learn techniques was either to buy DVDs or
go to the gym.
Yeah,
go to the gym. And
But so what changed that is Marcelo Garcia. So Marcelo Garcia was he started this MG in Action website, and he was the first person to basically just say, I'm going to throw it out there. It was revolution. Of course, everybody does it now. Andre Galvao and Art of Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. I mean, Gracie Baja, Atos, they all have their websites where you can just go and see them everything they do.
Well, you got BJJ Fanatics, you got Jiu-Jitsu X, like there's a lot of options.
Right. But back then, Marcelo Garcia was the first one that pretty much just said, I'm going to put it all out there. All my techniques, everything. And you can study me. Because people were worried, they're going to study me and learn what I'm doing. And Marcelo's like, listen, my stuff, it works whether you know it or not. And he said, I think it's better for jiu-jitsu as a whole.
I love that, because we would have never met without that opening. Well, we would have through orthopedics, but most people I meet in jiu-jitsu is from traveling and cross-training.
Right.
And so I love that he did. I didn't know he did that.
Well, he was the first one that I'm aware of that started a website. People cross-train to an extent, but not like online. Online, you would not be able to see a lot of training footage.
Yeah.
And Marcelo, basically, his website was like every day, every training session he did, he would post it.
Interesting.
And then, of course, he posted all of his class and all of his techniques, everything he did.
What's important for jiu-jitsu, right? It's spreading like wildfire.
And the thing about Marcelo that's interesting is, even after doing that, of course, he still beat everybody. But, Marcelo's, the thing about him is he will say that, the stuff he does, it works whether you know it's coming or not. Mm-hmm. I mean, Marcelo's interesting. He only does like 4 submissions. This guy who's one of the goats of jiu-jitsu, he does guillotines, rear naked chokes of some sort, arm bars, and north-south choke. That will be 99% of his submissions in any of his training or any of his competition footage.
Yeah, well, it works.
Why? Because that stuff works.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's how I got my black belt so fast.
Very good. Yeah. Well, moving on to kind of more injury-related stuff, since we're both surgeons and both train. The big joke is I'll slap hands, bump fists with my friends, and then they'll say, oh, you're funny because you can break me and then you can fix me. Yeah. And I always joke that I should like carry my business card in my gi. But I know we were talking before this and you said you've done that before. So what have you done where, like, obviously not on purpose to get business, but.
Yeah. No, I mean, having been doing jiu-jitsu in Atlanta so long and the type of surgeries I do are, sports related. So yeah, I definitely have treated tons of jiu-jitsu athletes. I mean, it's funny, like when I also cover the IBJJF competitions here, and it's nice to see, but I'll be like looking on the mat, and I mean, probably like 20 of the people at any Atlanta Open tournament I've operated on.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty much, whenever I go to the gym, because I am okay with this, and I tell them, and the professors know it's fine, but yeah, I mean, if somebody gets hurt, they'll just call me over,
Yep.
you know, and I do that all the time. If someone gets hurt there, you know, I put in shoulders on the mat.
Well, same, whenever I'll be rolling and then I just hear, doc, and it's like an immediate, I joked that one time one of my friends, she broke her ankle. It's like dislocated, broke her ankle.
Yeah.
And I was rolling and I was about to get choked by one of my buddies, Anthony Terrell, and he has me in a bow and arrow. I'm like about to tap and she goes, doc, and I joke she saved me. So I was like, thanks for breaking my ankle, so I didn't have to tap.
Exactly.
But I always carry stuff in my car. Like I remember I went to my car and got splinting material, and I'm making a mess on the mat. But that's the stuff I enjoy. Like people will come over and say, "I'm so sorry to bother you," and I'm like, "No, this is who I love to treat, right? This is the population."
Exactly right. I enjoy it, and yeah. But I've had a couple of people I've actually been rolling with. Like twice, I've had somebody who cut their head open or their eye because they hit my knee, or I hit them in, you know, by accident, and I took them to my house and sewed them up.
Yep. Got to take care of them when you hurt them.
Exactly.
Well, what's the worst injury you've ever seen in fighting?
Orthopedic wise, I mean, knee dislocation. Seen that before. You know, the worst injuries in MMA and boxing are the concussions. I mean, so I've seen some pretty bad knockouts. I've had one athlete that actually had a brain bleed. Luckily, I mean, we diagnosed it there while they were on the mat. The ambulance, well, we didn't diagnose this, but we knew something was bad. But the ambulance was there, so we rushed him to the hospital.
And that's a good call because it's tough sometimes when you see a concussion or whether you send them or not.
Right.
So, you know, we're both ringside physicians, and you are one of my mentors, you and Dr. Andrea, who is also in Atlanta. And so the two of you kind of mentored me since I came out a couple of years ago.
Right.
So anytime I'm at a fight and I'm like, oh God, this is wild, I'll just give you a call.
Right.
Because you've been doing it 15 years.
Yeah.
Right. So those concussions are really scary, and we're usually better off sending them than not.
I will tell you, the high level promotions like UFC, I mean, we'll send 80% of the fighters to the hospital after. I'm not saying they all need it, but we're super careful about it.
Yeah.
You know, if in doubt, then we will usually refer to get a CT scan. And then I think that probably the worst injury for me, because I don't treat this, is Derek Brunson when he broke his jaw. So he was fighting Yoel Romero, and Yoel Romero elbowed him in the jaw and basically broke his jaw in half.
And you see the teeth come up.
Yeah. I mean, his teeth were separated, and
but it's not just losing a tooth, like the whole
I mean,
gums.
So here's the thing: is for me, that was the worst injury I've seen, because I don't treat that.
Right.
Now, if somebody's an oral surgeon, they probably look at that. Oh, well, I mean, it's a mildly displaced jaw. You know, they're not even worried.
They're like wiring it and sending him to the ER.
Same thing. Like I was watching when Anderson Silva kicked Chris Weidman, and when I didn't watch when Chris Weidman, but I was actually watching that fight when Anderson Silva kicked Chris Weidman. Of course, everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, look at his leg."
I was at the bar and everybody's losing their mind. I was like, "He's got to rot it, guys. Chill."
Like, he's gonna be better than he was before. Like,
he'll be walking tomorrow.
Like that's an easy surgery. So that doesn't really bother me to see his leg go like this, you know. But
it's good for the show, huh?
Oh yeah. So.
Yeah. All right. Great. What tips do you have for injury prevention? I know you have some stuff on your Instagram, which I'm going to link to after you have your top 10 things that you can do. The first one we were kind of laughing about. So if you want to talk about that one and maybe give us 2 or 3 that are your favorite things to teach people to prevent injury.
So I think, honestly, the number one way or the best thing you can do to prevent injury is get better at jiu-jitsu.
That's what we were laughing about. Like, just be good.
Yeah.
Don't suck.
I mean, I'm not saying that white belts necessarily have a higher injury incidence than competitive black belts. Competitive black belts probably have a higher injury incidence, but it's because of the intensity of what they're doing. It's still better at any level to get better at jiu-jitsu and have your body understand which way you're moving, you know, and feel comfortable with the moves and learn more and more how the other person is going to move as well.
Well, I talk to people, bigger guys, right? When they come to grapple with me, 125 pounds versus like my boyfriend who's over 200.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't smash and use all your force, because I can't really do much to that when you have when you're pretty good.
Yeah.
But if you just become technical and lighten up your weight, you will learn so much from small females, small people, because we have to really have technique to get around the big guys.
Right.
So that was what I took from Get Better at Jiu Jitsu. Like, get more technical, study more, and don't focus on your strength in training.
Yeah, and that's it for sure. And going along with that is there's a philosophy called neuromuscular training. And basically, it's about your body being better coordinated, your nervous system and your muscles being better coordinated. For instance, with an ankle sprain, what typically happens, if someone has already sprained their ankle, they're more likely to sprain it again. Why? Because of proprioception. So, in a normal ankle, you get to a certain point and your nerves pick up right away that you're stretching it too much, and your muscles fire
automatically,
and it comes right back where it's supposed to be. But once somebody sprained their ankle, that proprioception, the nerves going to it are damaged. So it's part of the problem with recurrent sprained ankles is, well, you may have torn some ligaments, okay? But a lot of times you've just stretched some ligaments, but you're more likely to strain it because your body doesn't really know where the ankle is in space as well. And that's why it's like physical therapy and training, balance board, things like that help with.
The connection's gone. That connection is gone, so your muscles don't fire automatically anymore once you've had that sprain.
Right.
So I talk about proprioception a lot, like on my Instagram, and the importance of it, especially after I tore my ACL, just how important that single leg stuff is. But for people that don't know what it is, can you kind of explain what proprioception is?
So proprioception, it's not a conscious thing, but it's the ability of your body to know where it is in space, basically. It's the feeling that the joints have around them so that they know where exactly everything is. And where it comes into play again is at the extremes of range of motion before something actually pops. You can have a pain in your tendon, but or in your ligament, and that means it's already stretched a little too far. Your body's actually going to be better off at recognizing that it's getting close just because of where it is. Yeah. And then it reacts. So proprioception is basically just the feeling of your joints, but it's more about your joints knowing where they are.
Yeah, it's an automatic response that you have to train, because when you're in the moment, like playing soccer, whatever the sport is, you can't be like, okay, ankle fought, like peroneus, brev. Like you can't just tell your muscle.
So it's about training. It's about training. And that's where, the more that you do jiu-jitsu and you drill, for instance, the better that your body knows where things are.
And going back to ankle sprains, that's super common injury that we see regardless of even out of sport. And people will often immobilize their ankle and just like sit on the couch. And yes, you could do that for a day, 2 days, whatever, get the swelling down. But I straight into PT, right? Because you need to start working on that proprioception and not let that thing stiffen up.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So we talked about our favorite prevention, which is just
and there's some other injury prevention tips which I have on I have like a 10 list. But, it can be as simple as things like be aware of your surroundings. I mean, if you're training next to an open window,
right? Don't keep going.
Laugh about it, but one of the most old school intense gyms I've ever been to is Unity Jiu Jitsu in New York. Went and trained up there at their old place. Marilla Santana's there. The Meow Brothers were there. That place was awesome. It's so old school. It's like this tiny room. There's like no air conditioning, so it gets super hot. There's like a shower there, and people will actually, in the middle of their training, they'll jump in the shower with their gi, because the shower is like right next to it. It's a tiny room, and then they'll come out and keep training. But
in the same gi?
Yeah. but the thing is they actually had they had mats going all the way up to windows. It's the second floor, and there's 2 windows at the end of it, and they have mats going all the way up. So, I mean, they probably just don't let white belts train near the window. I mean, the Meow Brothers, I'm sure they stay away from it. But,
right.
It's like, be aware of your surroundings. Is there water on the mats? Is there
a lot of sweat?
Yeah,
don't slip.
Things like that. So, I mean, it can be as simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And one of the last questions I had for you was, what's your favorite surgery to perform?
I would say is rotator cuff repair, simply because I like doing it. It's a fun surgery to do, and people do really well. I mean, it depends on how old they are and how bad their rotator cuff is torn or how long it's been there. But for most rotator cuff tears, I think people do very well.
It's elegant too. Like we're doing it now with cameras.
Right.
And we can go in through these couple little pokes and fix somebody's rotator cuff. And you can add different things. There's so many things on the market, which the research, that's probably another topic for another day. But you could add patches. You could do a lot to try and augment it if needed. Yeah. And every rotator cuff is different. Every tear pattern. But in jiu-jitsu, I haven't seen many rotator cuffs. It's not really a common injury in jiu-jitsu. I don't think.
I mean, I have seen quite a few. The people who get rotator cuff tears usually are the older jiu-jitsu athletes. I don't see it as much in 20 and 30.
Right. The more competitive people, knees, shoulder dislocations.
Right. But once you get in the sort of the masters 40 and over, I see a good bit of rotator cuff tears. Yeah. It happens.
Okay. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about was what kind of advice would you give to hobbyists and competitors that have full-time jobs? We work about 40 to 60 hours as orthopedic surgeons. We cover games on the weekends. We're ringside doctors. You also have kids. Mm-hmm. You have a lot going on. What would you give? What kind of advice? Because I hear a lot of people, they'll say, I'm so disappointed. I haven't been in 3 weeks. Like life just took over. So I always like to ask people that are doing it, that have a lot going on. So what kind of advice do you give to these people?
So I think number one is priority. If you got to make it a priority in your life. All right. So my priorities for the last 15 years pretty much have been family, work, jiu-jitsu, but not necessarily going to this concert or,
right.
It's about priorities. I mean, if I get off at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, I have a gym that I can go. I mean, for me, part of it was also kind of going to different gyms. Mm-hmm. Like some would start at 6:30, some would start at 7:30, things like that. But for the most part, it's about planning the day so that you have the time to do it. And then, it doesn't matter if I'm tired. And first off, I learned very early on that I could feel like crap, and I go and I feel great after. So
just the community, just with your friends there.
Yeah.
Or get buddies too. Like friends that'll text you and say, "Hey, you're coming tonight?"
Yeah.
Because then you're like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think priority is just a big one, and pretty much, I mean, I just would, if I didn't train for 2 days, I would be very much on top of my mind. When's my next training session going to be? Yeah. And I would make it work. And then priorities also. I mean, everyone has their own thing with their wife and kids and all that kind of stuff, and. I think I pretty much sometimes just had to put my foot down and be like, okay, well, I'm going to go to jiu-jitsu,
Or have a nice conversation before exactly. Saying, hey, look, if I don't, this for me makes me very happy. Right. If I don't do this,
it's, you have to take care of yourself in order to be helpful to the people in your life. Yeah. And that's just a really important concept. I mean, you really have to take care of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, before you can help the others in your life and be an asset to them.
I always preach that, like through medical training and everything, but that's really not for you, right? Medical training, you got to put yourself pretty far down the pole, unfortunately. Yeah. But once I came out of all my training, my first year out, I was still putting everyone else first, and I was miserable. I was really stressed. I wasn't sleeping. Yeah. And then when I put myself first, I know it sounds terrible, and people will say, how are your patients not first? Because if I'm not first and I'm not happy and sound of mind and have my sleep, how can I treat them in the best way? Yeah. So putting yourself first, I think, is important. Not all the time, but yeah. All right. And what's next for you on and off the mats?
Right now it's pretty much just continue. I mean, I'm not really competing anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm teaching and training with people and trying to help the rest of my team.
Developing the next set of competitors.
Yeah, exactly. Get ready for their competitions and that sort of thing. As far as orthopedics goes, I mean, just everything is going great with that.
Enjoying it.
I just keep working, taking care of patients. And then, for the ringside physician stuff, I'm sort of already established with that. So really that's kind of keep trying to be as excellent as possible with it.
That's awesome.
Do my best.
Very good. So. And where can people find you?
So I'm at Emory Orthopedics. So if you just look up my name on Emory Orthopedics, you can get an appointment or come in.
Yeah, great. And then your Instagram?
Instagram is BJJ Ortho. I think.
Well, I'll link out to it.
On Facebook, I'm Doc Chris.
Awesome.
And on Instagram, I think I'm BJJ Ortho.
Yeah, and people can go through my stuff, and we'll post about those 10 prevention injury or 10 ways to prevent injury. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here. This was awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
An Ironic Media production. Visit us at ironickmedia.com.